Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Wood and Ball Show. I am not your host, Dave Ball, also known as Blinson on Reddit and at Blinson1 on Twitter. I am instead his partner in crime, Blake. You can find me on Twitter. My handle there is at ShattonMyKirk, and you can find me on Reddit. My username there is BTownBomb. Filling in for Dave this evening, we have Hamza joining us this afternoon. He is at lafon on Reddit and Twitter. Hello, Hamza.
How's it going? It's good to be back. It's been a while since I've been either on our HockeyCast or the Dave and Ball Show in general, so it's really good to be back here.
Oh, yes. It's pretty good to have you back on the airwaves here. You were there from the beginning, so...
Certainly. It was quite a while ago, but definitely good to be back on the bicycle, as it were, or seeing as we're playing, or we do a HockeyCast back on the skates and ice, so it's nice.
Yes, Hamza has the skates laced up and ready to go, so we have a fairly good show for you this afternoon. I hope we do. I hope it doesn't go off the rails.
As always, you can blame me for everything, because...
Well,
so
let's see here first.
I guess the lead would be to drop or to list the topics that we're covering today and move on from there.
Oh yes.
So
oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to ask you to give us a list of sort of what the topics of the week were and what we covered today.
Alrighty then. Well, we begin by going over the games that Dave and I predicted on our long-running prediction challenge there. We didn't have a show last week, so we're going back 2 weeks ago to overview the games that were played then. Then we'll head into the NHL quick hit section. We have a wonderful story about a new league forming in the world of hockey. And we'll go into the playoff picture for the first time this season. There's already 3 NHL teams that have clinched playoff spots. And that should be a good segue into today's games. There have already been 6 games today that were played that are already final. We'll get you those finals and the recaps. And 7 more games on tap for tonight that we will preview and predict.
Absolutely. I'd just like to take this moment to remind you guys, as always, that if you have any questions for either Blake or myself, you can reach us on Twitter at our HockeyCast, or of course just here in the Hangouts on Air, where you can put a question in the sidebar and we'll respond to them.
Alrighty then. Well, let's see here. Dave has sent me the updated count. It's still very close. After the games from 2 weeks ago, we are now both tied at 34. It's been very close since we started this, and I still have a feeling this is going to come down to the wire. I have a feeling this is going to end as the final game of the final day of the regular season in a shootout determines who wins this. Wouldn't that be something?
It would be something worse yet, that I'm the weak link in the chain here. So hopefully not.
Oh yes, Dave would certainly hope that you do him good. So, well, let's get you these games here. There were 12 games played on Saturday. And I think one of them was already final before we got to this. We got to the prediction, so there may have only been 11 games we picked from. But we'll get you all the finals here, and we start a afternoon game, Philadelphia and Detroit, and Philadelphia gets a 7-2 win there. 3 power play goals by the Flyers, one by Wayne Simmons in the first, Braden Shen in the second. Zach Ronaldo did score his first of the season, but Matt Reed was the third power play goal in the third period. A 7-2 Philadelphia win over Detroit.
That's kind of
Boston.
interesting.
Oh,
sorry,
yes.
sorry. Keep going.
Boston over Pittsburgh, 2-0. Both teams both recorded 30 shots on goal. It was a pretty even game, I guess you could say there. Very tight game, too. Milan Lucic, 9:53 in the first, gets his 15th, and the next goal would come 19:22 in the third period on the empty net by Zdeno Chara. Got his 7th of the season on the empty net goal, and Boston got 2-0 win on that one. Chicago topping San Jose, final score of 6-2 there. And let's see here. Melker Karlsson is 12th, and Joe Thornton on the power play. The only goals for San Jose, who actually outshot Chicago 35-30. But power play goals by Duncan Keith, Patrick Sharp. Patrick Sharp had 2 of the Blackhawks' 6 goals there. Propel Chicago to the win. The New York Rangers topped the Buffalo Sabres 2-0. Both goals scored in the third period. Keith Yandel, his 5th of the season for the Rangers, and Martin St. Louis with the empty netter, his 20th. The Winnipeg Jets and the Tampa Bay Lightning play a close game. Winnipeg gets the 2-1 victory there. Nikita Kucherov gets Tampa on the board first. All 3 goals were scored in the third period. 4:13 in the third for Kucherov's goal, is 26. However, a power play goal by Drew Stafford and Blake Wheeler about 2.5 minutes later gets Winnipeg the win. A much-needed win for the Winnipeg Jets as they still hold on to that wild card spot, I believe, and they're creeping up on Chicago. But we'll get more to the playoff race in a bit there. Montreal and the New York Islanders. Well, the Islanders outshot Montreal 36-30 in that game, but it was the Canadiens with a 3-1 win. Goals by Plekanec, a shorthanded goal by Max Pacioretty, and Lars Eller with the empty netter. Gets Montreal the win. Josh Bailey on the power play was the Islanders' only tally there. Vancouver Canucks topped the Toronto Maple Leafs 4-1. Phil Kessel with the only tally for the Maple Leafs. Chris Higgins, Derek Dorsett, Jannik Hansen, and the empty netter by Sean Matthias seals the deal for Vancouver in that one. Another 4-1 final. This time the New Jersey Devils over the Arizona Coyotes, with the Coyotes outshooting New Jersey in that game 31-29. However, Shane Doan, his 13th of the season, was Arizona's only goal there. A power play goal by Adam Henrique, and goals by Steven Giunta, Jordan Tutu, and Mike Camilleri in the third provided New Jersey with the win in that one. The Colorado Avalanche topping the Calgary Flames 3-2. Calgary, another team in the thick of the wild card race there. Colorado went up 2-0 in the second. A power play goal by Alex Tanguay and Ryan O'Reilly at 11:27 in the second. However, David Jones broke the shutout. 3:54 into the third. Lance Boma also scored in the third. However, John Mitchell provided the game winner for Colorado in that 3-2 win. The Minnesota Wild tops the St. Louis Blues 3-1 at the Scott Trade Center in St. Louis. Oh, how about this? St. Louis outshooting Minnesota 42-19 in that game.
It's quite the difference.
Oh, Devin Dubnyk, of course, the number
Goaltender
one
of record.
star, the
Hmm.
goaltender of record, the number one star of that game, stopping 41 of those shots. And the Blues' first goal was the first goal of the game. Gave the Blues the lead. David Backes with his 23rd at 4:57 in second. However, three unanswered goals by Thomas Vanek, Nino Niederreiter, and Brodziak gives Minnesota the win there over their Central Division rivals. The Florida Panthers topped the Carolina Hurricanes 2-0. Carolina outshooting Florida 27-22 in that game. Brandon Peary on the power play in the second, and the empty net goal by Dave Boland gets Florida the win. Dan Ellis credited with the shutout there, stopping all 27 Carolina shots. And lastly, the Nashville Predators topped the Los Angeles Kings 2-1. Los Angeles with the edge in shots, 24-23. Excuse me. Jeff Carter got the Kings on the board first, a power play goal at 7:44. But to the third period, we go with the rest of the scoring. A power play goal by Craig Smith and Victor Stahlberg with his first of the season proves to be the game winner. Nashville gets 2-1 lead. Those were the games from 2 weeks ago. Hamza, what were your thoughts on the games from 2 weeks ago there?
So I don't have as much a chance living here on the East Coast to watch a lot of the West Coast games. But for me, the ones that stood out are games where Carey Price shows up, which, of course, we know this year have been all of them. So I guess the ones that stand out for me last week, or 2 weeks ago rather, would have been the Montreal Canadiens game, where even though they were outshot by the Islanders, it was all Habs, all because of Carey Price. He is their MVP. He is definitely their Vezina winner. I think, yeah, for sure, absolutely, that game is the one that stands out to me, even of all the others.
Carey Price, there are very few goalies in the National Hockey League who is so skilled at carrying his team when his team's offense is just not clicking. And Carey Price does that magically, so wonderful at it.
Absolutely. I'd say that the Montreal Canadiens this year are like a slightly more talented, or rather than slightly, a little bit more talented Colorado Avalanche, where, yeah, they don't have the greatest possession numbers, they don't have the greatest shots, they don't have, all of these lovely magic buzzwords that we like to throw around every once in a while, Corsi and Fenwick and these, but Carey Price makes all those irrelevant. He stops everything, and those that he doesn't stop, well, they're going wide anyway. So, yeah, I think that to say, like, we're seeing right now, probably in this last couple of years, the best performance by a goaltender in a while.
He is gonna take that team far, and but let's just see if that offense will get them going even further. Still, for how amazing Carey Price is, a goalie can only take a team so far.
Exactly. A 1-0 loss is still a loss.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So for you, what game stood out for you in that period?
Well, I'm going with the homer pick here, and of course that 3-1 loss to the Minnesota Wild, that one definitely stuck out to me, especially considering uh, St. Louis worked Minnesota that entire game. The 42-19 shot advantage, but my goodness, Devin Dubnyk.
Absolutely. What a great story. He He's been playing some hockey recently that many people have discounted him from. And I think part of that was because of that one terrible season in Edmonton, although the key word there is not terrible or season, but rather Edmonton. Which, as any hockey fan will tell you, is a goldmine of misery, and honestly is probably one of the worst places, rather, where you can judge a goaltender. So I definitely think that seeing Dubnyk come out of left field is perhaps less the fact that he came out of left field, and more that he's finally playing for a team that can give him a little bit of the support that Edmonton couldn't. And certainly to see him succeed is very positive, except when he's playing against your team.
Devin Dubnyk to me is a cog in what has been voice cracks. A cog in what has been just a very fascinating season for the Minnesota Wild. At this moment, you can really break it into three different parts. The early part of the season, when they were good, not great, kind of hanging around in there towards the middle of the pack in the Central Division. And then the moment when Josh Harding, towards the middle of the season, kicked the boards and subsequently broke his foot, and that opened up a whole can of worms. Then the Wild suddenly sink all the way down to the bottom of the division, and Backstrom, he's getting old. Kemper still needs tons of experience. The defense was in shambles with all the mumps. Things were just not looking good for the Wild. All of a sudden.
And I do agree that this has been a bit of a turnaround. To have a goaltender you can rely on is a great thing. I definitely agree.
And the scary thing is, Dubnyk is just one part of it. The defense has returned pretty much in full, and the offense is clicking again too.
Absolutely.
Minnesota all of a sudden is becoming the complete team.
And it's definitely something good to see. They've got the offense in Parise and Koivu and so forth. They've got the defense in Suter and their supporting cast there. And now they've got the goaltending in Dubnyk to really do something. Just to get to the playoffs, and B, I think that they could make some noise in the playoffs as well, depending who they're matched up against.
I'm just so fascinated as to what would happen with this team, especially not just in the off season, but I want to look forward towards the next season and see what happens for Minnesota then. Some people are out there saying, this is just some sort of magic and it'll wear off. Other people are saying, this is the start of something special for Minnesota. And I think in these playoffs we will really get to know which one of those it is.
Certainly. Blake, did we lose you there?
Oh, no.
Okay. For some reason, this stream cut out for a couple seconds, so I was a little bit worried there. We'll get to see in a couple weeks which Minnesota is the real one. Do we have the Minnesota who can make noise, or do we have the Minnesota who, from previous years, perhaps didn't do as well as they'd hoped? Again, I say that they're probably going to be a little bit more to the former than the latter, but again, time will tell. So, I guess moving on a little bit now to some of the other games today, if you want to, some of the other talking points today. We want to move on to those a little bit and your thoughts on them.
Yes, moving on into our NHL quick hits section. This is not about the NHL per se, and more so just hockey in general. We have a new league being formed. 4 founding teams in this league, and it's all about the women in this one, the NWHL, the what I assume is the National Women's Hockey League.
Absolutely, and it's certainly a very interesting topic. I mean, the timing is also interesting, and I mean, there has been not rumors, but some talking going on around if the CWHL, which previously was the women's league here in North America, as to that expanding, and then we get this. I guess the main criticism. Moving on, if whoever's listening and doesn't have really a background in this, the biggest criticism of the Canadian Women's Hockey League, and it's a really big criticism, is that they don't pay their players. So what's different about the NWHL is the fact that it promises to pay their players a living wage to play the game. The question is, why now? Why the timing right now, as opposed during the off season or so forth? Why is it such a sudden announcement? The other question is, how will it work? How does the financial aspect of the league, how does it measure up? How do will they manage to keep their audience? How do they manage to keep being able to pay their players, which is a great, I mean, personally, I'm all in favor of such a thing, because we do not have, at this point, up until this point, a way where women's hockey players can play the game at a high level and still, because any athlete will tell you, to be able to play a sport at a very high level, you have to focus your time, energy, and money on the sport. Hands down. There's no taking a day off here or there. The only problem is, if you can't make money doing that, there's no real way. You have to balance things like a job or other things, or school similar to this, and still put the most effort possible on the sport at the end of the day. And that's not always possible. In fact, it's very, very, very difficult. So this is a great announcement. But the things that come up are, how will they pay their players? And I just want to know what your thoughts are on the concept in its entirety, as well as how what your thoughts are for them moving forward.
Now, to begin to fill in the listeners with more general information, this was announced that it will begin play, I believe, next season during the same time as the NHL season, I believe it was. It was announced.
Yeah, the season for the NWHL is from October to March, and that includes preseason and playoffs.
Mm-hmm. And what day was this announced again? I forget.
So this was announced within the last week or so. I'm not sure the exact day, but I'm thinking it's probably by just the beginning of last week, so probably around Monday or thereabouts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the four charter teams, the four founding teams, the Buffalo Buttes, which I have to say, I kind of don't like that name.
It has been one of the criticisms of the league. One of the more petty criticisms are the names for the teams, of which, of course, there are the Buffalo Buttes, Boston Pride, New York Riveters, and Connecticut Whale.
Mm-hmm. I do have to say who thought it was a good idea to name a women's sports team Whale.
I think actually the Connecticut Whale will be using the whale image previously used by the Whalers.
Indeed, they will. Yes,
they have secured the blessing or the permission of the head of Baldwin Sports and Entertainment Group, who used a similar logo. That is, of course, Howard Baldwin Jr. And it's certainly a throwback. It's a great image for that one. I do admit.
And also the New York Riveters, especially, that's a great name for a team, for a women's team. A great logo too. Have you seen that logo?
Absolutely. I'm taking a look at it. I do think of all of them, the Buffalo team makes me a little bit wary, but the others are fairly good. I do enjoy the imagery and the namings of them.
Oh yes, oh yes. Uh, well, at the moment it is four teams, but it'll be interesting to see if any other teams get involved. Um, I, w- I would hope so too that more teams would get involved because if you're playing from October to March with just four teams, I don't know.
Each team will play 9 home games and 9 away games,
Hmm.
so we are not sure how it'll be set up. Um, as of right now, there all the details haven't been finalized, which means that we're getting information coming out slowly. Um, things may change a little bit later on in the year as uh, either they secure more funding or whatever the case may be, whatever partnerships that they have in place, however they manage to associate teams, how many people they get involved who have been committed to free agency for this league. So as I said, we're not yet sure what the final outcome will be of these teams. This is really the only one. This is only the real information that we've listed so far. Is pretty much all that we know as of right now. Um, so yeah, that's really that's there's not much more than that yet.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, now then, getting more into my commentary feature. Uh, I will say, if if I'm the CWHL right now, I am absolutely petrified. I am absolutely terrified of the NWHL forming because they have something that the CWHL does not, and that again is paying players. The NWHL will pay players, the CWHL does not. So, maybe I'm um, just going straight into conclusions here. But that would seem to me that maybe some players from the CWHL would want to jump ship. They've been playing hockey at a professional level for uh, I guess a few years now, and they'd want to be paid for it, and I don't blame them for that too.
I think the NWHL is probably the greatest thing that could have happened to the CWHL, simply because it forces them to move away from the status quo. Uh, Even if the NWHL does not pan out, and I really hope it does, I sincerely hope it does. It's an impetus for the management of the CWHL to say, look, we've got interest in women's hockey. We've got interest in the players. We've got interest in this and that. I think it is probably the best thing that could have happened because it forces the CWHL into a position where they sit there and they're like, okay, that league promised to play its payers, and now it looks bad on us if we don't do something similar. I think it's probably a stepping stone, even if this does not succeed, which, again, I hope it does, but even if it doesn't, um, it's probably, again, the best thing that could have happened to just the idea. We're moving away from this idea that women's hockey is, and this erroneous idea, I might add, that women's hockey is somehow subpar or a lesser game somehow. I think um, I think that it's an excellent move because we're starting to realize that hockey is good, and hockey from all sources, especially the women players, is good, and it's definitely something I'm encouraged by and looking forward to.
I, I'd like to use an example from a different sport for your point just then. I was listening to ESPN radio the other day, and all the shows there they had. Ronda Rousey on their show, who's she's an MMA athlete.
She is. If you haven't heard about Ronda Rousey, please come out from the rock you're hiding under and watch her matches, because my goodness, she is amazing. Like,
Yes,
one of the best fighters I've seen. Period. There's no, like, I mean, you could go on and say for a woman, but then you'd be wrong, because she's the best fighter I've seen in a long time. Um, to say anything about how she's a woman, it changes how you look at her athletic ability, is probably the single most ignorant thing you could do, in my opinion.
and she was on with SVP in Rosillo, Scott Van Pelt in Rosillo, in the afternoon, and when they were interviewing her, this just excellent moment came up. They asked her what she thought about all these male boxers. I believe Floyd Mayweather included, um, saying that they wouldn't mind trying to fight her. And Ronda, she basically her answer was she wouldn't want to, and she said something amazing too. She wouldn't want to because it's still a man punching a woman, beating up on a woman in a public setting, and that's just wrong. But at the same time, on the same token, she said it's still amazing that we've even come to the point where that becomes a topic, that becomes a question. You know, it's amazing that we've come to the point where people wonder, what if she can take these guys on?
Hmm.
And I think that's sort of the same thing with hockey. Look at what's her name, Shannon Sabatos. That amazing goaltender there, and she's actually playing in a men's league.
Yeah,
And
she's splitting
everyone's
time between with goaltender duties between her and the other goaltender there.
hmm and everyone that's seen her, uh, they're wondering, I guess something like which male hockey players can she like make an amazing save on, which male hockey players, hockey teams can she compete against? And it's just still simply astounding in a good way that we've come to that point. So we've made leaps and bounds there already.
I think the biggest issue that we have here is this idea of separation, this idea that yes, but, you know, or um, there's too much of this yes, but in every conversation we have about women's sports in
Mhm.
general. Um, and I hear it way too often. You know, oh yes, the Olympics were so exciting, the women's game was so exciting, yes, but the men's was later on. We watched that, or something like that. Something ridiculous and meaningless, in fact, because women have not been given a chance, even if we get right down to it, to be given that opportunity to get to that point. If we look at men's hockey and somehow try and compare the two, men's hockey has years of money being pushed into it, of being supported and partnered with, and women's hockey just doesn't have that. Um, like, if you think about it this way, men's hockey has, to get to the NHL level, you are paid to play the game at a high level, essentially from the time you leave AAA, I believe is the time. So by the time you hit Junior A here in Canada, you are essentially being paid to play. Perhaps you're not obviously being paid a living wage or anything like this. You're still learning, but your equipment's provided to you. Your travel costs are provided to you. Um, you get the benefit of having a trainer and dietitians and access to resources for health and how to become better um, at the game you play. Women's hockey doesn't have this. Like, there is no analogous system for them. So to compare the two is like comparing someone who's trying to race a streetcar versus someone who spent all their time building a race car, or with all the parts provided to them. It just doesn't equate. You can't compare the two on that level to begin with because they're not on the same level to start. So I think that when we try and compare these two things, we're doing a disservice to both sides. One, we're underestimating women for no apparent reason other than the fact that, it seems to me anyway, that they're women and therefore somehow lesser in sport, which I personally don't agree with. And then you're also disrespecting the other side because you discount all the work and effort that the men put into play to get to the point that they are. I think when we quickly dismiss women's hockey or women's sport for all intents and purposes, we set all of ourselves back by saying, yeah, you guys are better, and forget about all the stuff you did. You're just better because you're a dude. Or forget all the work that you have to do to get there because you're never going to be at that level. Or something equally ignorant, in my opinion. I just think that's the kind of thing that we say, or that's the kind of thing that comes across when we say things like, yes, but, and move on to talk about these sports.
I will acknowledge that we still have a long way to go in this whole deal, but again, even starting to wonder, oh, could so and so woman athlete, could she have a chance against so and so male athlete? I think even wondering that is a huge step in the right direction.
Agreed. And I do think that we're making progress, and we need to continue making progress. I think instead of just standing around saying, oh, good job, we now have a hockey league that will pay our women players, pat ourselves in the back, and that's that. I think that we're moving to the right direction, but we're not quite there yet.
Oh, yes. But we did get just a little sidetracked there. Moving back to NWHL and CWHL, basically I see one of two scenarios. Either and it's all dependent on if the CWHL still refuses to want to pay their players. With that in mind, either A, all the players are going to move over to the NWHL and the CWHL just ceases to exist, or B, they could merge.
Alternately, the other thing that has been bandied about has been the concept of the CWHL and the NWHL forming a partnership league like the NHL and WHL of yore, where they're separate leagues but they play together. And again, there's much to learn in the coming weeks and months, and we'll certainly have any information about this as it comes out. We'll be discussing it moving forward significantly. In fact,
and I will point out this was something that Ari, one of the co-hosts of the Dave's and Ari, whatever their show's called, she brought this up, and I do believe this is actually a legitimate concern. Just imagine this scenario here. So the CWHL, they still don't pay their players. All the players move over to the NWHL, and the CWHL dissolves, but then the NWHL is faced with, I guess you can call it a backlog of having to pay all these players and not having enough money to do it, and then the NWHL dissolves because of not being able to pay anybody. Then you have then you go from 2 women's hockey leagues to no women's hockey leagues. Then what?
In fact, and that is one of the concerns that has that has been talked about a little bit. I don't think we'll ever get to that point. The momentum has has gotten to a point now where I think women's hockey has become something in North America that people are genuinely looking for. And I don't think that we'll have a situation where both leagues fall out of business. I don't think that will be the case. But as I said, the biggest issue that we have right now is that we don't have much information, right? We already know pretty much how the CWHL rather operates. We don't have that much, comparatively speaking, about how the NWHL will operate in future. Again, I'm hopeful, but like I said, I would like to wait and see how it all pans out as we move forward.
Oh yes, I'm equally as hopeful. I'm hoping this just starts a huge movement, goes into expansion, all that. I'm hoping big for the NWHL, and have you decided which of the 4 teams you're going to bandwagon yet?
I haven't yet. I do know that I will be watching the games. As to which team, I'm not sure yet. Probably not Boston, simply because of the fact that I don't like Boston teams in general. And probably not New York, because I dislike New York teams in general. So it'll probably be Connecticut, if I'm honest. Yeah, it's probably going to be Connecticut.
See, and I'm leaning more towards the Riveters. The main reason being their name and their logo concept, and I'd imagine they'd have amazing jerseys too. So the aesthetic things are pulling me towards the Riveters, and I know with New York and Connecticut being geographically close, we might end up being NWHL rivals. So.
Well, basically what we're saying is, Blake, your team sucks, mine's better.
Perhaps, yes. Perhaps. Alrighty. Oh boy. Okay, well now our next topic. The first time this season on the Wooden Ball Show, we're going to be looking at the playoff picture. We're going to be updating you on what's going on in the race for the NHL playoffs.
Just a fair warning before we get started in the playoff picture. At some point in the description of the playoff picture, I may throw out words like, I don't know, God damn it, or please, hockey gods, or Bruins, please just lose the rest of your games. Do not be surprised. I am a Sens fan. This is normal behavior, and to be expected.
I am a Blues fan who, I guess, recently is always terrified of my team for some reason. So you may find me rooting for Minnesota a little bit, but mainly Winnipeg. I'd like to play Winnipeg more in the playoffs. A, the season series were so exciting, so amazing, and B, we have the lead in the season series, so it works.
I do think. Yes. The reason we watch the hockey is for the drama of sports. It is really why I watch. And while the math of statistics and predictions and such is fun, I don't watch it for that reason. So this time of the year always makes me feel a little bit jittery, if you will. Just looking at the teams going in, which I guess is a great segue to the teams that have already clinched a playoff spot. Because we're looking at two teams clinched today, those being Anaheim and Nashville with 103 and 102 points respectively. And we've had a team clinch day before yesterday in the Rangers with a 5-1 win over the Ottawa Senators, who reached the 100-point plateau and also clinched in the East. I do not believe there's any further possibility of a team clinching today. And looking at the standings, Actually, just taking a quick look here. Oh Lord. So we've got playing tonight. So it is actually possible for one more team to clinch tonight. If St. Louis gets a win, they will have 2 points, taking them over that 100-point plateau, which will have them clinch in the West. Other than that, that appears to be the only team remaining tonight that could clinch a playoff spot with a win.
And elsewhere, Montreal, they have 100 points. They're right at the century mark.
The issue is you have to be above 100 points to get that clinch. So and the Habs do in fact play tonight. So my mistake. Two teams could possibly clinch today.
Yes. And one team that also could have clinched today, but did not, but we'll get to the game recaps and the previews and whatnot in a moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning, who, after their loss this afternoon, still sit at 99 points.
Yes, that is in fact correct. They were shut out 4-0, and screams of the woes. Cedric Paquette was injured in that game, trying to guard an empty net, and that is bad news for them because
yes.
It definitely hurts. He's done very well in the last couple of weeks and months, and losing him is not something that I believe Tampa would like to have happen.
Yeah. Let's see here. We'll update the four divisions and the top 3 teams in the divisions at the moment. Then we'll look at the wild cards. Same as last year, too. The wild card races in both conferences are very exciting. But we'll begin with the top 3 in each division. The Eastern Conference, the Atlantic Division. Close race for the 1 and 2. You have Montreal at 100, Tampa at 99, as we had previously mentioned. But then, I have to do quick math. 7 points back. Detroit with 92. Double check me on my math there.
So part of the issue. What are you looking at here? Just so I can clarify.
Basically, 99 minus 92.
Oh yeah, we got 7 points difference there.
Yes, now you know. Now the listeners know just how downright dreadful I am at math. So Montreal 100, Tampa 99. Then you have Detroit 7 points back with 92 points.
However, the reason why you need more than 100 here in the Atlantic is because Detroit has 74 games played. They have 2 games in hand over Tampa and 1 game in hand over Montreal, which will become 2 by the end of tonight. At that rate, it is possible for Detroit to take top spot with 8 games left. It is highly unlikely, but possible for Detroit to overtake Tampa Bay in the point race. Of course, this is unlikely, but it is still possible, which is why the point differential is that high. So there has been a notification just now that we've received about Cedric Paquette. The first report that has been acknowledged has been that he has no fracture, but it is unsure if he will play Monday. That is still very good news because the fracture is a guaranteed removal from play for at least 6 weeks. So this is at least more positive news than we had expected. Yes.
And let's see. Meanwhile, the Metropolitan Division, the top of the division, it's getting interesting. You have the Rangers at 101 points already. So it was the Rangers who clinched the first playoff berth of the season. Second and third, you have Pittsburgh and the Islanders both with 93 points, but the Penguins do have a game in hand over the Islanders there.
But also looking quickly at the points, Washington is below them by 3 points at 90. They have 75 games played, so they have a game in hand over the Islanders. So if the Washington Capitals go on a hot streak, it is entirely possible that they could push the Isles out of that third spot and into the wild card. So look out for that. And then moving on to the wild card positions, we have a bit of an interesting thing going on here. At the top of the wild card spot is Washington with 90 points, with 75 games played. However, and Boston in the second wild card spot with 75 games played with 87 points. Right behind them is the Ottawa Senators with 85 points in 74 games played. 73 games played. They have 2 games in hand over Boston, which will
And
reduce, of course, to
Washington.
1 by the end of today. Ottawa, if they can go on a win streak, has the better chance of making the playoffs than Boston do. Simply because they have that game in hand over Boston. However, and Boston the last 10 is 4-3-3, although they should have won 1 game. The Anaheim game, there was a bit of a goaltender's interference on the OT goal, and Ottawa is 8-2-0 in their last 10. Of course, anyone watching the Sens will, or really watching the NHL in general, will know about the story of the Hamburglar and his amazing run to start the season, or his career rather. But he has regressed slightly, and he is injured, or he was injured slightly in the game 2 games ago, and so he's returned to about a 900 save percentage and a 3.0 goals against average. The Sens will be going with, of course, Craig Anderson tonight versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. But that's a quick update on the Eastern Conference playoff race and wildcard. As for the West, Blake?
The Western Conference, the Central Division, the top of the Central Division, the top 3 teams, it's a very tight race there, what you would come to expect from, in my opinion, the best division in the National Hockey League. You have Nashville, who has now clinched a playoff berth with their win today. They are at 102 points now.
They currently sit atop the league right now in points with 102.
Mm-hmm. St. Louis with 99, a win against Columbus tonight, would bring them back to 1 point.
Mm-hmm.
And a game in hand. This would be their 75th game. So they would have a game in hand over Nashville. Also, with 2 games in hand, because I don't believe Chicago is playing today. They're not. 2 games in hand then on Nashville, 1 on St. Louis, the Chicago Blackhawks with 94 points. And I suppose we'll dip into the wild card race here, because behind Chicago now, look out, the Minnesota Wild, 93 points. Chicago does have a game in hand over Minnesota, and it'll be 2 games in hand after tonight, because Minnesota plays tonight. But they're still 1 point back, and Minnesota's playing Los Angeles, too.
That is an interesting thing, because Los Angeles, even back about 2 weeks, were squarely outside the playoff picture. And they've turned on the Jets, excuse me, bad pun, and have moved into 3rd in the Pacific, out of the wild card race. So that is definitely an interesting thing that has happened in the Pacific Division.
And I've said this plenty of times on this podcast. This Kings season did not surprise me one bit. The Los Angeles Kings under Darryl Sutter, they're just not built to be a great regular season team. We've seen it happen every season for the past couple seasons. Remember, they were the 8th seed when they won the Stanley Cup in 2012, and after that, it was basically not really show up in the regular season, really turn it up to barely squeak into the playoffs, and then just really use that bad pun again, turn the Jets on in the playoffs.
Exactly, and it's interesting to watch from outside the West, where every team seems like a juggernaut. I mean, any one of those teams alone are making. There's going to be a team this year that's going to miss the playoffs that in the West Coast are like, maybe they shouldn't have, and I think one of those teams might be San Jose. They didn't play as well going through the year as many thought they would have. I mean, San Jose has some stuff going on in San Jose that you look at and you're like, it's a bit interesting. But they also have a lot of talent that perhaps will limit them from the playoffs when previously they would have made it. So I think the West is a very tough conference, and of course the Central Division, as everyone knows, is probably the toughest division currently in the NHL.
And quickly going over the top three in the Pacific Division before further going into the wild card. The top three in the Pacific, well, you have Anaheim already clinched a playoff berth, 103 points, way behind them by 13 points there. I do believe I did the math correctly there. I'm proud of myself now. 90 points, the Vancouver Canucks, and the Los Angeles Kings. Vancouver will have Vancouver and LA plays tonight, so the games played will remain the same, but Los Angeles is 2 points back of Vancouver for the second spot in the Pacific Division. So, two very big games right there. The Los Angeles Minnesota game has huge implications for the entire Western Conference. That one's going to be must-watch hockey right there, but we'll get into that in a bit. The wild card, the Minnesota Wild does have the top spot in the wild card, 93 points, though again they are a point back behind Chicago. A win tonight, they leapfrog Chicago. They take the third spot in the conference there. The Winnipeg Jets, currently with the second wild card spot, they're at 90 points. The Calgary Flames are outside the playoff bubble, outside the wild card spot by 3 points, but they do trail the Kings just by 1 point in the race for third place in the Pacific Division.
At this point, it looks like the wild card in the Western Conference is going to go. Two teams from the Central will likely take the wild card in the West, and anyone from the Pacific will need to get into the top three of their division to make it to the postseason.
Yes. Let's see. Okay, that concludes the current playoff picture. Now then, we get into today's games. We have already had 6 games played this afternoon. 7 more to come within the next hour and 20 minutes. 3 games will be getting underway then. But we'll go over the 6 finals now. The Nashville Predators take on former head coach Barry Trotz and the Washington Capitals again. And Nashville gets the 4-3 win. Washington had the edge in shots, 28-27. However, Nashville took a 3-0 lead to the second period as Matthias Ekholm, Mike Fisher, and Philip Forsberg scoring in Washington. How about that for a narrative? That's a very fun narrative there. I like that one.
As people who know Blake will tell you, those are an excellent ground for some quite lovely hot takes.
It is, though I do kind of agree that trading Forsberg for Erat was not the smartest decision, especially looking at this season. But let's see. I'm looking forward to the hot takes. There's got to be some.
Indeed, and I will be lying if I said that was not my favorite part about listening to people talk about trades after they happen.
Yes, that's that's always the underappreciated part of the trade deadline. We get all caught up in the excitement of the trade deadline itself, but everyone just does goes their own way after the trade deadline. I stick around for the hot takes.
Absolutely. So I guess some of the other games that went on, if you give us a quick recap of those.
Oh yes, well, Nashville did make, or I'm sorry, Washington did make it 3-2 in the second, back-to-back goals both by Troy Brouwer, one of them a shorthanded goal. However, Mike Ribeiro regained the lead. Mike Green scored 20 seconds into the third, but that was all, as Nashville got the 4-3 win, and the Nashville Predators clinched a playoff berth with Barry Trotz in attendance. How about that?
Absolutely.
How's that for narrative?
Indeed.
I want to hear more people driving that narrative. Okay, yeah, you know what? Forget about Philip Forsberg scoring in Washington. The Nashville Predators securing a playoff berth right in front of Barry Trotz is amazing.
I would agree.
Provide me your hot takes from that, people.
And as always, hot takes can be directed at us via Twitter, because
yes,
we do genuinely enjoy a good hot take, especially the cold winter weather that we've been having up here recently in the north. Although supposedly it is spring, I have yet to believe them. Anybody who says it's spring, but as always,
or as I like to call it, just pre-summer.
Indeed, exactly.
There's
3 seasons in Canada, though. There's winter, pre-winter, construction season, which is about 2 weeks long, and then winter again. So
there are, of course, 4 seasons in the state of Texas. All 4 of them can be experienced in 1 week.
Absolutely.
So then, let's see here. Oh, here we go. The Boston Bruins and the New York Rangers. Today was Henrik Lundqvist's return from the injury sustained against the Carolina Hurricanes, with which he took a puck right into the Adam's apple. He was out for about a month or so then. He returns, but Boston spoils the homecoming, I guess you could call it. It was in Boston. A 4-2 win, while being outshot 32-30. Milan Lucic with back-to-back goals in the first period, his 16th and 17th.
There was some, I have to admit, some conflict, I guess, about one of Milan Lucic's goal, which was redirected in off his skate, which some thought would have been called, and was in fact called a kicking motion on the ice, but was overturned by the War Room in Toronto.
Yes.
So definitely something there that some talking points, of course, which always brings us back to we should streamline the requirements for judging what a kicked-in motion is and so forth. But yeah, definitely something to look at.
Yes, that one was the first goal that came at a minute 41 into the game. Carl Soderberg at 14:27 rounded out the scoring. Riley Smith 5:53 in the second ended the scoring for Boston. Back-to-back goals by Rick Nash, his 40th, and Matt Hunwick in the third. However, that was all the scoring the Rangers could muster, as Boston takes the 4-2 win in that one.
Yep, and positions themselves currently inside a playoff spot in the East with that win.
The Anaheim Ducks travel to the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum, its final season. And so this was Anaheim's final game in that uh, in that barn there, and they take a win out of it. The Islanders outshoot Anaheim 31-24, but Anaheim outgoals the Islanders 3-2. The two teams traded goals in the first period. Ricard Raquel for Anaheim, his eighth, followed by Lubomir Visnovsky, 17:08 in the first, tied at 1, entering the second. Back-to-back goals by Kyle Palmieri and Andrew Cogliano, both their 14th of the season. Casey Cizikas, 14:24 in the third, made it a one-goal game, but Anaheim escapes with the win.
Which I was mistaken earlier. I would like to clarify. I did say that Nashville was at the top of the NHL. That was incorrect. It is, in fact, Anaheim who is number one overall in the President's Trophy race.
Yes, with
103 points, I believe. Yes, 103.
Though that race is tight. Nashville with 102. But
right behind them, New York Rangers with 101.
In a fairly decent game played by the San Jose Sharks, in which they travel to the Wells Fargo Center and outshoot Philadelphia 44-18, the game still goes into a shootout, but San Jose takes the 3-2 win. 3 goals in the first, 2 by San Jose. Matt Irwin opened the scoring at 4:38. Answered by Michael Raffel, his 20th of the season there, but a power play goal by Joe Pavelski, his 36th, regains the lead for San Jose, and no scoring in the second. The Flyers captain, Claude Giroux, though I don't think I had to specify which team is captain.
Ooh dear, oh dear, that's a little bit of a blow there, Blake.
I am throwing shade for no reason. Sorry, Sharks fans, but a power play goal for Giroux. That was his 23rd at 8:37. We go into the shootout. Daka Voracek scored the only goal for Philadelphia, but goals by Melker Karlsson and Brent Burns, who is the 10th shooter, secured the win for San Jose.
Alrighty, and so we've got a couple more things just to quickly recap before we move on to the predictions for tonight. Arizona-Pittsburgh, Letang was injured and was taken to hospital after the game, which is of course of concern following his concussion and stroke.
Oh, yes.
Earlier in the year. Pittsburgh does come out on top 3-2 over Arizona. Who else did we have on tap? And of course, Dallas-Edmonton with. Sorry, that was yesterday, so my mistake. Coming up tonight, though, we've got. Six games. Sorry, 7 games tonight. Around coming up in about an hour. We've got Ottawa versus Toronto, Florida versus Montreal, New Jersey, Carolina, Columbus, St. Louis, Los Angeles, Minnesota, and Buffalo, Colorado, and finally Dallas and Vancouver. So you'll have to enlighten me as to your predictions process. I am not familiar with it. This will be my first time with a prediction.
Well, first we'll do a preview of each of the games, and with me being a St. Louis fan, you being an Ottawa fan, we'll give some insight into our respective teams' game from our perspective. We designate a game as our game to watch for tonight, go over the picks, and end those predictions with the upset pick of the night. So Hamza, the Ottawa Senators, they're coming off a loss, I believe their last game was that loss to
the Rangers, a 5-1
Rangers,
loss.
yes. And the Battle of Ontario continues tonight. They take on the Maple Leafs. What are your thoughts on this upcoming game?
My thoughts. One thing is, I guess, in summation, terrified would probably be the easiest way to describe it. Ottawa, on paper, this is a team that should be beaten easily by Ottawa. I mean, currently the Ottawa Senators record stands at 37, 25, and 11, whereas the Maple Leafs are at a miserable 27, 42, and 6. Ottawa has a full 10-game win differential over the Maple Leafs. That being said, Ottawa has a history of playing down to their opponent, where a team they should play well against, they don't. And this is never more evident than against Toronto. Alternately, the other thing is Toronto tends to play better versus Ottawa for some reason than any other team. So, I guess the fact is, I'm not sure. Ottawa should be winning this game. Ottawa should be getting back into a playoff spot. But will they? I'm going to have to wait till the end of the game to let you know on that one.
Oh, yes. And that game coming to you 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time from the Air Canada Centre in Toronto.
Yep.
Meanwhile, the St. Louis Blues, they're back home. It was an interesting road swing. But they're back home. They're back at the Scott Trade Center, and they're taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Big story for tonight. Kevin Shattenkirk, who we have been without since the 1st of February, and it's almost April, and we're just now getting Shattenkirk back from his abdominal surgery. He is returning in the lineup. He will be on the third defensive pairing with Barrett Jackman. I'm not too sure that would work out well. Barrett Jackman is a very defensive defenseman, whereas Kevin Shattenkirk is a very offensive defenseman. The two of them especially are just so different in how they play. Barrett Jackman, sometimes he can be an enforcer. Sometimes he can just be really defensive.
I think the argument for putting Shattenkirk with Jackman is to give him a sheltered return.
Oh yeah, and I do believe his time on ice, of course, will be limited, and I do get that, but I don't know. Jackman and Bortuzzo lately, I've been liking the way they've been playing on a pairing. The last couple games. And you know who also returns from injury? Carl Gunnarsson. But let me tell you, nobody cares because Shattenkirk is back, and we're all excited about that. Brian Elliott gets the start tonight. I don't know what the deal has been with Brian Elliott lately. He hadn't been good lately. He hadn't been what we expect from him lately. He's been letting in all the goals and whatnot, so I'm a little skeptical about that. Still, even though it is Columbus, of course. TJ Oshie is sick today, but he is expected to be in the lineup. Although, should he not be in the lineup, Patrick Berglund will move to the first line, and Olli Jokinen would move into Berglund's place on the third line. So, I'm hoping that Oshie took some magic pills and he is healthy again, because I do not want to see that first line.
That would be certainly some bad news for the Blues.
The Steenbackus Oshie line. Okay, for all the talk that the STL line, the Schwartz Latera Tarasenko line has been getting, that top line, that Steenbackus Oshie line, has been doing just as good.
Exactly, and you don't want to really mess with something that's already working.
Yeah. Though if he's not ready to play,
Exactly. Yep. That's another issue.
Yeah.
I guess quickly moving to the other games, just to give a quick showdown as to what could happen in those. The only other real games of consequence would likely be Minnesota and Los Angeles, where important playoff positioning can be changed there. With a win, Los Angeles certainly cements their position in the wild card race, or actually rather in the Pacific Division, moving up to 90 points to tie with Vancouver.
If Vancouver loses, of course.
If Vancouver loses, exactly.
Tied at 90 there.
Yeah. So that one definitely has some meaning. The other thing is, if Minnesota were to win, they would move into third place ahead of Chicago, and Chicago would push down into a wild card spot. There is some positioning to be done there. Actually, my mistake. Minnesota would not push Chicago out. Or rather, they would push them out, but Chicago would have the game in hand over them. Or 2 games in hand at this point, as they do not play tonight.
Yes.
So that would mean Chicago would be in a better position on that front. That said, I do believe that those 2 games, we've got in a battle for how best to get a draft pick, we've got Buffalo and Colorado happening at 9 p.m., and the last game, of course, would of really any another tank game, I guess you could call it, is the New Jersey Carolina game. And lastly, Montreal, I believe, could clinch with a win tonight. So that's another one to keep an eye out for.
Okay, I deem, of course, Los Angeles and Minnesota. That game will be on the NHL Network for whoever gets the NHL Network. I do, so I'm happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
That will be. I personally, I officially deem this the game to watch for tonight, and that one's going on the Twitter.
I would agree with that. It has the most implications for playoffs being played at this point, or rather, still to be played tonight. And I guess if you wanted an exciting game to watch, it's probably the most exciting game on the air. Otherwise, we've got a bunch of games, mostly between playoff teams or potential playoff teams, and teams that are not doing so well.
Yes. Okay. Alrighty then. So now we finally get into the prediction time. We move down the list here and make our predictions, and we finalize them with the upset pick of the night. And we start Carolina and New Jersey, Hansa.
So what my prediction is for that game?
Yes.
Oh, that's a tough one. Let me give a quick look at seeing who is in the lineup tonight and how they go against each other. So Corey Schneider starts for that one, and Cam Ward. I say Devils come out on top, 2-1 shootouts.
And as I said earlier in this show about Carey Price, there's nobody in the league better at carrying his team when the offense isn't clicking than Carey Price. If I had to rank goalies in that category, Corey Schneider would be second. He is also just as good. Well, not just as good. He's up there still. He's good at doing that thing as well.
Absolutely. And look at the cast that he's had this year in New Jersey. Leaves a little bit to be desired. So I would agree that Corey Schneider has done an excellent job to this point, and really hasn't gotten any support, whether defensively or offensively, throughout the year, which shows in their position in the standings.
Mm-hmm. Though Cam Ward there, that could be an interesting goalie battle there. Cam Ward is good on some nights.
Agreed. Cam Ward has had an interesting couple of years. Let's see how it plays out.
Oh,
I guess is the basically the implication here tonight.
Yes, but I believe the advantage or the X factor would be the goalies. I believe whichever goalie would be the best, of course, obviously would win his team the game. I believe Corey Schneider would be the better goalie tonight. Give me New Jersey in that one. Next up, the Ottawa Senators, the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Am I allowed to abstain from this one? Anybody who's seen my last retweet will know exactly what I'm talking about, and we can even retweet it from the Our HockeyCast account if we'd like. As Ian Mendez just mentioned, you aren't a true Sens fan unless you have a tiny seed of doubt planted in your brain about a game at the ACC with playoff implications. This speaks to everything that is true about the Senators fandom as a whole. I don't know who's going to win. I'd like to say it's the Sens, obviously, but I don't know. And I'm, of course, uncomfortable not knowing in this sense.
If it helps you, since you said I'd like to pick the Sens, I'm just going to mark you down for Ottawa.
I've never rooted against my own team. I'll put it that way.
Yes. And you know what? I mean, I agree. I mean, this may sound silly for you, Hamza, but this is coming from an outsider standpoint. It's Toronto. Okay, it's Toronto, and then Ottawa. They're better than Toronto. So
to be fair, I believe if I'm looking at the standings here, there are exactly 3 teams. Oh, sorry, no, my mistake. There's exactly 1 team not Toronto-like in the East, and that's because of the Buffalo Sabres, who have taken losing to a whole new level of unprecedented terribleness. So yes, I do see where you're coming from.
Oh yes. So yes, give me Ottawa for that one as well. Though I will say, hearing your insight on this as a Senators fan, at the very least, I think it would be a tight game. I think it would be a close game.
There's 2 things of note, though, in the Sens game. Craig Anderson returns from injury for the second time in about 2 weeks, back to play. I don't know what to say about this. The other thing is Clark MacArthur draws back into the lineup from a concussion sustained with a collision with Sens goaltender Robin Lehner, who is still out with concussion-like symptoms. So those are 2 positive pieces of information that are coming out of Ottawa today.
Yeah, see, there you go. You're getting closer to being more confident. I can feel it. So, okay, next up, the Montreal Canadiens and the Florida Panthers.
Here's a case of a team. I think on the Florida Panthers side, almost all hope is gone at this point. Basically, they need a miracle to happen to get into that last wildcard spot. They're at 82 points. Ottawa's ahead of them with 85 with a game in hand. And, of course, Boston is 5 points ahead of them with although Florida has a game in hand over Boston. I don't know that Florida actually can make it to the playoffs at this point. I say Montreal makes it just on the strength of Carey Price's goaltending. Although this will be a one to watch to see if Roberto Luongo can do the impossible again, and which he's been doing pretty much all year to get to the Panthers to this point.
And honestly, you picked Montreal. Oh crap! I wanted to keep it a surprise. Okay, we'll go back to it. Everyone forget this part. Hamza picks Montreal. Okay, so the next game.
Yes.
The St. Louis Blues and the Columbus Blue Jackets.
It's tough to argue against a juggernaut like the Blues coming up against a team as badly injured and as underperforming as the Columbus Blue Jackets have done this year. I mean, Sergei Bobrovsky's in net, but Gunnarsson's back for the Blues. Shattenkirk is back for the Blues. I say the Blues take the Columbus Blue Jackets here today.
This is going to sound silly, Hamza, but I'm like you in that I just don't know. Since I have to make a pick, I'll say St. Louis. But what concerns me is I I totally understand the Jackman Shattenkirk pairing, but at the same time, those are two completely different people, and I'm not sure how to feel about that. And there's the chance that Oshie might not be in the lineup, though. The word from Ken Hitchcock is that he fully expects him to be in the lineup. But there is still that chance, and he has already explained his plan. And I don't like Patrick Berglund on the first line. And Columbus, they're hot. They're 7-1 and whatever in the past 10, I think it is. They beat Chicago 5-2 last night. I mean, you could say they're tired from beating Chicago in Chicago, and we got to pounce on them early. But we're not good at pouncing on teams early. We haven't been for the past few weeks now. I believe only
Certainly.
one.
I still say that that the Blues come out on top, if only because a back-to-back against two very tough teams in Chicago and St. Louis, with St. Louis getting their defenders back, and Columbus suffering some late injuries. Rene Bourque will need, I believe, surgery and will have season-ending surgery, although he will be healthy by next season. So I say the Blues come out on top.
And then one more point, the last game, of course it was a road back-to-back for the Blues playing in Chicago and losing the night before, and then losing 7-1 in Columbus back when they were not as good as they are currently. You could say, it was a back-to-back, the Blues are really tired, but they outworked Columbus that game, and they had 7 goals against. I don't know. But anyway, that, and Columbus being hot in the past 10 games, I don't know. I'll pick St. Louis because, I have to pick something, but I don't know. The next game, the Minnesota Wild and the Los Angeles Kings, both of ours number one games to watch for tonight.
Sorry, I missed. I didn't hear that last part.
Oh yes, Los Angeles and Minnesota, Hamza.
Oh, Los Angeles, Minnesota. Oh boy. To be unbiased, I say I don't know. To be completely biased, I say I hope Minnesota wins. This is A, our game of the night, and B, very important for playoff implications in the Western Conference. Probably the toughest game going to be played tonight, although I can't help but hope that Minnesota squeaks out a win here in regulation, so I'm going to go with Minnesota.
I also can't help to hope that as well. They'd leapfrog Chicago, and that would mean if that were to happen and the playoffs were to happen and that scenario were to be played, we'd be not playing Chicago, so I'd be happy about that. In my unbiased opinion, my gut feeling, I'd still go with Minnesota. Again, as we said at the beginning of this show, Devin Dubnyk has the Wild rolling. Not just Devin Dubnyk, but the defense is pretty much back. The offense is clicking again. Los Angeles, on the other hand, yes, they're in a playoff spot. Yes, they rode an amazing win streak to get to a playoff spot. But Jonathan Quick in that defense hadn't really been up to par. Give me Minnesota.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So we've got Minnesota on top of Los Angeles.
Next up, the Buffalo Sabres and the Colorado Avalanche.
AKA Tank Battle. Who is going to be worse first? I say Colorado wins, if only because of the fact that Buffalo is doing truly terribly today. I think means that Buffalo comes out on the bottom, or in their case on top, and Colorado takes the win here tonight.
Colorado is fuming after losing to the Edmonton Oilers in their last game, after having to come back from a 3-0 deficit only to lose 4-3. They have that going for them. They're not going to want to lose in front of their home fans in front of the Buffalo Sabres. They're the last thing they want is a 2-game losing streak against two of the worst teams in the league. Colorado's going to be fired up. Give me the Avalanche.
I agree. I agree there. All right. So, what game did we not cover? Have we not covered yet? I believe Dallas, Vancouver.
Yes.
Throw your cards on this one. Vancouver. I don't know. Vancouver has been doing things recently that makes you shake your head. Dallas has been doing things recently that make you shake your head. Combined, well, it's Dallas and Vancouver. So, I mean, the Canucks. I think they'll Canucks will eke out a win. And yeah, that's really all I have on them.
It'll certainly be a close game, I think. Are you able to look up the starting goalies for this game? I'm curious to see who's starting. My assumption is Letton and Lack, but let's. But
Looking quickly at the projected lineups, so Eddie Lack and Kari Letton are
yes.
the likely starters. Of course, these are projected lineups, so they may change come game time, but these do seem to be the most likely at this point.
Okay, well, because I believe the goaltending will be the X factor in this game. Both teams have an amazing top line. Vancouver has the Sedin twins and whoever.
Radim Verbata, I believe, plays in that top line with.
Okay.
Or no, my mistake. Alex Burrows has come to the first line. Radim Verbata moves to the second line with Sean Mathias and Nick Bonino.
Though I will say the Sedins this season, whoever has played with him on that top line has been good. Even Zach Kassian has done things on that top line.
I think that's less on the person and more on the Sedins.
Yes. Radim Verbata, though, he's been good on that top line, but still, Dallas has Ben and Sagan to counter that. Both teams' defense leaves a lot to be desired. So I think it'll really come down to the goalies. And once again, I base this on who I think, obviously, would be the better goalie. Eddie Lack will be the better goalie tonight. Give me Vancouver.
Alrighty.
Oh yes, and lastly, my upset pick. I tried to keep it a surprise to everyone, but we kind of alluded to it. But Bobby Lou, he's got some magic in him tonight. I believe my upset pick of the night, I believe the Florida Panthers will have just enough to defeat the Montreal Canadiens.
All right, so there's the upset pick of the night for Blake. That is quite all right. We can see that one happening. It has happened so far this year, so
yes.
It'll be interesting to see moving forward.
Hamza, I don't believe you have an upset pick.
That's right. I do not have an upset pick. Interesting. Okay. Let's see. I've already listed all the teams I think are going to win. I went mostly with the top ranked. If I had to make an upset pick, I'd probably swing Carolina over New Jersey.
The offense, I will say, head to head, New Jersey and Carolina's offense. Give me Carolina's.
Yeah, the issue here is not offense between those teams, it's the defense and goaltending. And one team has one of those two things. So, yeah. But I still say if my upset pick will be Carolina over New Jersey. Reversing my previous opinion from like 10 minutes ago of New Jersey over Carolina.
Yes, we have. I have allowed you to make your change so that we can keep with the show. Alrighty. Well, that's all that we had to discuss this evening. It's 5:17 p.m. Central Standard Time, so we've run about maybe 2.5 hours or so.
Yep.
No, hour and a half, something like that.
Yep.
Still,
There's been quite a few things to talk about this week.
oh yes. Okay, well now we're going to get into our ending portion of the show. This has been the Wooden Ball Podcast. I am Blake. You can find me on Twitter. My handle is at ShetMyKirk. You can find me on Reddit. My username there is BtownBomb. Filling in for Dave this afternoon, we had Hamza. You can find him on Reddit and Twitter, both at LafonH. For our hockey cast, be sure to tune in Friday nights for the Mighty Dave and Ari show. That would be the name of it. Dave Gove, Dave Ball, and sometimes Minnesota Dave, as we call him, joins Ari, or the other way around. Ari joins the Daves, and that's Friday nights. I forget the time of that one, and they run really long. They talk about a lot of stuff, so it'll be great. But
as always, you can interact with us directly via the Our HockeyCast account at Our HockeyCast. Tweet at us, send us questions, send us links, anything that you think is interesting in the world of hockey. Or otherwise, world of sports. We always are interested in hearing about these things. Yeah.
The subreddit are Our HockeyCast. Our website, ourhockeycast.com, where you can listen to archives to past shows, and you can do that same thing on the YouTube channel as well. Sort of eliminate the middleman there. That the YouTube channel that is Our HockeyCast.
Absolutely. All right.
And for Hamza, I am Blake, signing off. Enjoy the games this evening.